Hi, this is Joan. Welcome to my channel, Just Wanna Craft. In this video, I have 5 farmhouse style DIY Valentine's Day crafts, so I'm gonna get started. For my first craft, I thought it would be fun to make a Valentine's Day love letter. I'm using these tumbling tower blocks from the Dollar Tree. My closest Dollar Tree now has the set where you have half of the darker and half of the lighter. So since these are gonna be covered, I'm using the darker with some of the lighter. I am taking 4 sets of 9 and gluing them together first. And now I'm going to glue them together, the top and the bottom, and then the 4 sets, 2 on top of the other 2. Once my glue is dry, I am going to take a piece of white cardstock. You can see I did have some crease marks. I tested it out first before filming it. And so the best way I can describe it is I'm folding it like a present, folding the sides up and then the top and the bottom coming together in the middle. And I just took some tape to hold that there. Now I'm going to be making the top and the bottom of the envelope where they come in and meet in the middle. So I took a regular envelope and I'm measuring to see that it's the same length as my envelope. And then I'm going to use the envelope and trace it so I get that same shape. I'm just making a template here to trace. So once I cut this out, just roughly, I'm going to fold it over so that my 2 sides are even. I'm just seeing how that looks on top of the envelope and trimming up the sides a little bit. They hung over on the side a little. And once I have that how I like it, I'm going to trace it to make my other pieces for the envelope. So one for the top, and then I am going to trace it again for the bottom. And there I have my 2 pieces. For the back to cover it up, I am just gonna cut out a rectangle. You can see how I creased it a little bit to figure out where to make my lines. Cut it down so it's a better size, and I am going to attach that to the back so it's covered up. To make my envelope look distressed, I am taking Antique Wax by Waverly and I'm using my finger. I first am going around the outside of this piece and then I am going to go over all of it in the middle. So I do that to both the top and the bottom. And I'm also going to distress the main part that the top and the bottom pieces don't cover up. So again, I started on the edges and then just covered the whole section. These little wooden hearts came from a package from Hobby Lobby. You'll see it in one of my other crafts. And so I painted that one red. And I'm just attaching these with regular Elmer's glue. You can see on the back I tested out my antique wax to see how it would look. So I'm attaching those. Then I'm going to attach that back piece so it looks a little bit better on the back. I'm just putting some heavy bottles on there while it dries. I'm taking some jute cord. I pulled off a long strand and now I'm trying to find the middle. So I'm going to fold this around 3 times and then I cross it in the back. And 3 times there, I'm going to put my string through one of the little hearts and then I just tie a knot. And that finishes my cute little love letter. Next, I have these jumbo craft sticks. Actually, I always call them jumbo, but they're actually giant craft sticks from Walmart. And I'm taking 9 of them, 7 for my main part, and 2 will be on the back to hold them together. I did a craft very similar to this for Thanksgiving, and I thought, why not do one for Valentine's Day? So after I cut off the rounded edges, I'm laying my other 2 on the back to measure out where I need to cut them down to. And then I'm going to paint all of them with the antique wax. So I did both sides so the back would be finished. And once I had them all stained with the wax, I did wipe them down with just a Kleenex to take a little bit of the color off. Now, so they're nice and secure together, I used some masking tape and then used wood glue to attach those pieces on the back to hold it together. Here I cut out the word love on my Cricut and I made a stencil. So I'm making sure that it's nice and down attached to my wood. That paint color is called Vintage White by Folk Art. It's a nice ivory color. I wanted this to just be really neutral to match my little hearts. So I'm using my little sponge to dab that on. Once it was dry, I lifted it off and then took out my pieces. So the little wood hearts are what I was talking about before in my first craft. They came from Hobby Lobby. And I just picked out some I like. There were 9 different kinds or designs of the heart. Here I am touching up where I got some paint on the outside of my stencil. I wasn't looking or being careful when I put my paint on, and I got some on. So I just was touching that up again with some more wax. I'm going to take some jute cord. I'm going to make a little banner with these hearts. So I like to tape it down first just to make sure it's in the right spot before I hot glue it. I'm laying out my hearts, trying to decide the order I want to put them in, how far down I want them. Then I'm going to see how far down I need that cord to go and then tape that piece to the back also. Then I just taped it on the front to help hold it down a little bit. So once again, I'm going to lay those out, and once I have them all in the spot I want, I'm going to take some hot glue, and I'm just putting a little dab on the top of each heart and attaching them to the jute cord. I started on the outside, and there I'm just trying to get out some of that hot glue, that strings that got inside the heart. Then I'm going to go to my middle pieces. Since there were 7 of the sticks, I just centered those 2 on the middle one. And then once I have those 2 down, I'll attach the last 2. Once that was done, I'm going to take off the tape on the back and I'm going to put just a big dab of hot glue on the back to hold that down. And I just held on to it till it was dry and my cord wouldn't come up. To get this to stand, I am taking these little wood cubes that also came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm using wood glue and a little bit of hot glue for the faster hold. After I put each one on, I'd stand it up to make sure it was in the right spot. And once I had those on and they were dry, this little love sign was finished. And here it is. Next, I'm going to be making a 3D heart. So I made a little heart template on my computer. And now I'm tracing this onto some cardboard. Making one for the top and one for the bottom. This is going to be the sides of my heart. So I measured 2 3/4 inches. And then I just cut that strip, cut off my uneven edges. And I'm going to attach this with some masking tape. I started by going on the top like this. It just wasn't working very well for me. So I found that in a second I'm going to flip it over right here and you can see this worked a lot better. I started from the inside and then put my tape down so I could just hold it and put the tape with the other hand. It wanted to pull away from me at first till I had some more tape on, but eventually it held. Once I had it all around, I just cut off the extra on that side. And then I'm going to attach my other side. Then I'm going to flip it over and I am going to attach, or I'm sorry, put on masking tape all around the heart to cover up that gap. For the more curved parts, I use shorter pieces. So I had to redo my top because the one I had previously cut out was a little too small. So I made sure this one was bigger. And now I'm going to attach that also with putting masking tape all the way around the outside. There, I just cut off any extra and had a nice good fit. And again, just adding masking tape all the way around the outside. So now I am taking speckling. This starts out pink and will dry white, and I'm using a craft stick to put it on. A couple of my kids came in at different times and said, "Looks like you're frosting a cake, Mom." It's like, yeah, it really does. It's kind of what it reminded me of. I'm not too worried about it being smooth at this point because I know I'm going to sand it down when it's dry. So to start, I just did the top of one side and then just one side so I could hold it with my hand. And after I have that pretty smooth, or as smooth as I could get it, I'm going to let that dry, and I let it dry overnight. Here you can see it did crack. So I decided so this won't happen to my other side, I am putting in a bunch of just plastic bags and putting those in until it feels like it won't push down because I think it cracked from the open space and the heart moving. So before I did the other side, I added that, and here now you can see the finished heart all covered. And I'm going to sand down the rough edges of that spackling. This did take me a while, probably about 10 minutes to get it how I wanted to look. And it still wasn't perfect, which was fine with me. It was the look I kind of wanted. So here I am taking a nail file to get in those little creases. Now I'm going to paint this. I wanted just a really pale pink color, and this just really sucked up a lot of paint. So I had to remix it a few times, and I decided the second time I mixed up paint to make it even lighter. It was just giving me a little bit of Pepto-Bismol vibes. So here you can see again, I went over it with a lighter pink. Now I'm taking this stencil, and I'm just going to be using the corner pieces here on the stencil. I'm sorry, the stencil came from Hobby Lobby. So I'm going to do this one in each of, well, I did it in the bottom of the heart, and I'm going to do it in each of the top of the curved pieces of the heart. So I did 3 of those, the bottom and the 2 sides. And in the middle, I'm going to do just a part of the stencil. In a second, you'll see how far I went up to right there. And once that was done and dried, my heart was done, and here it is sitting on my bookshelf. You can probably see it did crack again. Those cracks didn't show up until after I painted it, but you can't see it unless you're fairly close to it, so I was okay with it. For my fourth craft, I am starting with this wooden heart that came from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to take out that little string piece on the top. And then I'm taking these giant craft sticks again. I use these in a lot of my crafts. And I'm going to be covering it with the craft sticks. So I started in the middle of the heart, and I held it up to the heart and then flipped it over so I could trace the line I needed to cut. After each piece, I filed it down in case the edges were a little jagged. And now I am going to do the piece underneath of that. So I cut it off that round edge first. And I'm gonna again line it up and then flip it over and trace where I need to cut that stick. So my process was to cut these down and then tape them on so that they would all hold in the right spot. I'm doing this because I am going to be painting them and then distressing them, and I need to do that on the sides before they're all glued down. So I just followed along doing this, and then I got a little bit smarter. I just taped it down first and then cut it off. It was a little bit easier. That tends to happen when I do crafts. I find better ways of doing things. So here is my heart with all my pieces taped down, and now I'm going to untape it all. And to save myself a lot of trouble, I did number them all as I took them off, so I would remember the correct order to put them back on instead of having to figure it out myself like a puzzle. So here I am mixing up a gray color. I already had a pretty dark gray color paint, so I'm just adding some white to it. And then I'm going to paint all of my pieces, making sure I get the sides also. Once that was done and they were dry, I am painting the heart with white so that if there's any gaps between where the pieces come together, you'll just see some white in between. And now once those are totally dry, I am going to do 2 coats of white over the top to cover it up. And once those were dry, I am sanding to distress these so that gray comes through beneath. I started with that little sanding block from the Dollar Tree, but it was not doing anything for me, so I just switched over some sanding paper. Once I had those all distressed, I am going to attach them with wood glue. So I started in the middle again and just going through and putting them all down with wood glue, making sure they're lined up again. And once they were all on, I put a bunch of books on so it would dry flat. This is another heart I found at the Dollar Tree. It was not in the Valentine's Day. It was in the decor section, I want to say. And I wanted a smaller heart, so I grabbed this one. It's to write your Wi-Fi password on. I was trying to get the sticker off. I was going to see if it just came off easily, but it didn't really matter because it's going to be covered up again with more of the sticks. This time, I am going to have the sticks just all be straight across, unlike the last one where they were offset. So I'm first going to paint in that same gray tone. I'm not worried about getting the rounded edges because I know I'm going to cut those off. And then I'm going to paint my heart white, just like the other one. And then also go over my sticks with 2 coats of paint again. Once those were dry, I followed the same process of sanding them down so they were distressed. I forgot to say before, but I did go around the outside and then I did distress some areas in the middle of the stick. So some of that gray came through. Here I am lining them up again, starting in the middle. And then I'm going to glue them down using wood glue again. I started by doing those middle 2 pieces and then the right side, and then I finished with the left side. This was much faster and easier than the other heart, the pieces just all being long and covering the heart. So there I have them all done, and again, I'm putting the books on top so that they dry nice and flat. This little love wood cutout came from Walmart, and it was pretty thick. I didn't want it that thick, and it looked like they just glued 2 of them together, so I thought, "Hey, I can get 2 for the price of 1." Well, as I found, I'm guessing they attached them with wood glue, and it did not come apart very easily. It all broke, and my E actually broke off, but I figured it's okay. I'll be able to just glue it down so it looks attached. So I'm painting them in a nice light gray color. Made sure to get all of my edges, and I just did 1 coat of that. While that was drying, I came back to my heart that was done, drying also with the wood glue, and I'm now going to use my razor blade and cut off the extra. It did make my sticks on the other side a little jagged where it cut off. So I'm going to come back and touch those up. So I'm sanding it down a little bit where it was jagged. They're just cutting off all the pieces. And so here I'm touching up where the wood was jagged and you could see the pure wood underneath. So I went with the gray again. And then I'm taking white all around the outside. And here, once the gray was dry, I went over it with white. I'm using the same stencil that I used before from Hobby Lobby, but I'm only going to use a part of it. I'm going to have this part on the edge, and I'm taking the same gray. I had it left over from the love that I had painted, and just dabbing up and down. I'm trying to hold it really tight with my finger as I go. And there you can see I took a paintbrush and added it because I didn't want to get too much onto my little sponge. Once that was dry, I lifted it off, and I'm also going to do one of the corner stencil pieces on the top section of the heart. So to get my hearts to stand, I'm using these little wood round pieces. I believe they came in a pack from the Dollar Tree. And I'm starting out with one little tumbling tower block to glue it to, as I will soon find out that was not nearly enough. More on that in a minute. So now I'm going to glue down the word love on the bigger heart with some wood glue. Once I had it where I wanted, just had to clean up a little bit of glue that had squeezed out. I'm trying to get this nice and tight against that V so it doesn't look like it was broken. Now to attach these, I'm going to use wood glue to put the little tumbling tower block down. And then I'm also going to let those dry for a while. Once that was done, I'm using some wood glue and then I put some hot glue on the edges. And this is where I find out I don't know what I was thinking because the heart is way too heavy and that one little tumbling tower block didn't hold it. So I ended up just adding them one by one until it was heavy enough to hold that heart up. And then I did make another row in front and I ended up using 8 of them. And on the smaller one, 6 tumbling tower blocks held it up. Here they are finished, and I'm pretty happy with the way they turned out. Using the same wooden heart from the Dollar Tree for this next craft. And I'm going to start by staining the top part with the Waverly Antique Wax. I'm going to make a little pocket on the front of this heart for some flowers, so I am not going to stain the whole heart, just the top portion. And after I had it put on with my paintbrush, I did wipe some off with just a tissue. This was from a canvas that I had ripped off. I just wanted the frame part of the canvas from Dollar Tree, so I saved these. And it is the back side of it. Kind of a nice ivory color. And this is what's going to make my pocket. So here I'm measuring. I measured 5 inches down. Just making sure that it's even. And I started with Scotch tape, but that didn't work. So then I switched over to some painter's tape. I'm cutting my canvas down a little bit. And to get it to fold nicely, I am going to cut some slits. So I held it up, looked where I needed to cut my slits so it would be nice and tight on my heart. And then I'm using hot glue. Again, you can see I just held it up, looked where it started to pucker, and that's where I cut it. And using my little makeup applicator there to help me push it down so that I wouldn't burn my fingers through the canvas. So I just went all around the heart, making sure it was nice and tight. On the front of my pocket, I am going to use that same stencil. It's a theme for me this year with my Valentine's decorations. And I'm going to use just a part of it again. I'm going to center it in the middle of the heart on the pocket. And I'm going to be using the antique wax. So just like I did before, I'm taking a paintbrush and adding the wax onto my little sponge brush and then just lightly dabbing till I get my whole stencil covered. To finish off the top part, I am taking this ribbon that I got from the Dollar Tree. It's a nice lace ribbon. The color matched the canvas really nicely. And I'm measuring out. Oh, there you saw one of my sons wanted me to get him on his tablet. Nice little tablet in the video. So there I am attaching it with hot glue on the back. And on the front, I'm going to take one of my little tools. I'm taking just the smallest little dab of hot glue and putting it on the front to help it hold. And then I'll just secure it the other side on the back with some more hot glue. Then I'm going to add back I couldn't find the original string, so I just cut a new piece, put it through the front, and then I tied a knot in the back to hold it. And then I cut off the extra. And now I'm going to have some fun putting my flowers in the front. All of these flowers came from Michael's. I always try to get the flowers when they're at least 40% off, if not more. And so I'm just starting with some greenery in the back and adding in some different flowers. I wanted this to be nice and neutral with some light pinks. And once it was finished, here is my heart. And I think this is probably my favorite one of the video. I really like how this one turned out. That is all for this farmhouse style Valentine's Day crafts video, and I hope you enjoyed watching.